So I was looking for a way to mount some viable aux lights on a Harley Pan America. And there are some very good options, both from Harley-Davidson as well as from some of the other more premium brand Denali and others. But I decided to give some of these less expensive aux lights a try. So I picked up some of these V Ultra Series lights. Really excellent lights. They actually put out, they say, about 12,000 lumens is a pair. Plus they also have an integrated driving light that gets you noticed during the day without blinding, obviously, other drivers. So I don't need a real exotic setup for this. I want it to shut off and be switched with the bike power. So when the bike power is off, these lights are off. You don't run down the battery. They do take about 9 amps, so they can definitely draw the battery down. So what I decided to do was pick up these lights. They come with the lights, and they also come with a wiring harness, as well as I picked up some of these Keywig mounts that are great for lights that mount to the crash bars that I have currently on the Pan America. So they should be mounted in a place that should be able to find a viable place to actually mount these lights. Another thing I do like about these lights, as you can kind of see here in the pictures, they have actually side shooters. We live in an area with a lot of deer, and having dispersion to the side is pretty important. You can see things coming out of the woodwork, the woods, if you will, and we'll see. We'll give these a shot and see if they improve visibility. So let's hop over to the bike. So as you can see, I've got the Pan America pretty well stripped down, took off the seats and took off the tank. I'm not going to go into any detail about taking off the tank. There's a number of videos for the Pan America and removing the tank, but I can say this: if you remove the tank, one thing you're going to probably want to do is clean your air filter while you have the opportunity. So you just take out these screws, run the perimeter of the tank, and take off this connector, and the air cleaner is inside there, and you clean the box out and the air filter. But at any rate, so back to the aux lights. So I found a pretty good place to mount these aux lights. As you can see, they're mounted down in the forward section here, right below the turn and yellow driving light that's here. I used that Keywig mount right on the crash guard to mount it inside what I think is a pretty safe area. It's safe from getting too much debris from the wheel. It's mounted out forward. It's also inside the crash guard, so if it should fall, the light should not get damaged. There's some great options for running the wiring from these lights, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the wiring up this crash guard and then up inside the frame section here. And there's a cover that's right here with a single Torx fastener. You can remove this cover, and you can see it actually, the end of the light, the termination point of the light, actually comes out right up inside here. And it still has enough flex. So I'm going to mount it right up inside here. And then I'm going to run the wire back down along this side of the air box in the frame, and then back up over into underneath the seat here. Now underneath the seat, you see I already have the aux connector pulled out. I mentioned that I wanted to have this as a switched power light, so when the bike turns on, there's power available to the lights. When the lights turned off, or excuse me, when the bike's turned off, there is no power available to the lights, because these do drop out amperage, and they will run down your battery. So you'll find this connector actually up underneath here, mounted right here. You just slide it off and take off the cover, and this is available. And there's 3 pins in here. One is constant power, one set is constant power, and the other one is a switched power. And we'll be using the switched power for that. So you've got definitely enough room here to run up underneath this frame member here. Actually, it's a connected frame member really for mounting the tank, and there's plenty of room up underneath. So we'll run a wire over here to the left driving light, Then we'll actually run a wire over here to the right driving light. The rest of the wiring harness will actually stay up in here, including the relay and so forth that comes with the light. We'll just bind it up here and we'll mount it up inside underneath the seat. So should be plenty, look like there's plenty of room for that underneath the Pan America seat. So the wiring harness comes with a switch, and the way this switch works is the left side, you can actually turn on the actual spot beams for the light, and I think the right side is the DRL. You can have them on separately, so I can just turn the yellow DRLs on when I'm riding during the day, and then when I want to add additional add the additional lighting for the spot and for the full lighting configuration, I can press this left button. You can also press them both and run both your yellow DRL and your main light. But what I did was I actually I replaced the I had replaced the handguards, with these TourTech handguards. And these TourTech handguards mount in a different place, which left open these points for mounting a plate, which I actually printed out of carbon fiber. So I designed and printed this little plate out of carbon fiber with these standoffs, and it allows you to mount it right across here, and it gives you a very good solid point for the light switch. So that's how I'm going to run my light switch for this. So here's the harness that comes with the Auxbeam lights. Again, I think these lights were 160 bucks, and they have the relay already built, the harness with them. Also with some pretty good length on there. And they also come with a relay, as I noted earlier. And these are the two connectors that actually go to the lights themselves. And this is the connector to the switch, which I mounted on the handlebars. So what we need to do is we actually, for the aux connector power to provide switched power to these lights, we're going to actually utilize these power leads here. It is fused already, so I'll keep the fuse in line, but I'm going to cut these connectors off, and I'm going to mount these pins to those wires and actually mount them to the connector itself and push them into the connector. So we'll have a mating connector that will go onto the existing Harley aux port connector. So here's how I ended up tapping the harness for the lights into auxiliary power. I actually ended up, instead of using the auxiliary power port connector, I actually ended up using the heater port connector. It's actually an accessory for heated gears. It's also right next to it underneath the seat, which had a heavier gauge wire and an easy adapter, so I can unplug it as well. So now I'm going to go plug it in and see if I can get the lights to work and then route the cables. So now I've got the light harness, the Auxbeam light harness, hooked up to the accessory port, which is here. Now on the Harley-Davidson Pan America, there's two accessory ports. One's here, and it's in this special little holder, and the second one's here as well. These are switched ports, and they're higher amperage. So what you can do is, you can see I've actually hooked this from Amazon. I got one of these adapter cables and just butt spliced it into the auxiliary light cable harness, again with the associated relay. And of course this is the wiring loom that heads out to the lights. And so now I can go ahead and test the lights. So what I'm going to do is, lights should be off, which are not working right now since it's a switch supply, which means as soon as I turn on power, the lights should be available to work. So now, if I hit that light, you see that came on. That should be, I believe, my DRL running light. Yep, so there's the DRL light. And I'll switch to the other light, which is the main light. There's the main light, and there's DRL on or off, or main light on or off. Now, if I shut off power, it should also shut off those lights. So again, if we leave power on accidentally, or if we shut power on and we leave the lights on, it won't run the battery down. And we shut it down there. Now it shuts down with power. So, seems to work well. I'm going to go ahead and run the cabling and install the other light, loom it all up, and we should be ready to go with some aftermarket running lights. And I'll tell you, I think this entire setup cost me about $200. So do I think that these are quite as stout as, say, the Denali lights or so forth? Perhaps not. We'll see when we run them. They look like they're pretty high quality lights. They definitely seem sealed. They got a little heft to them. And of course the bracketry I've used is very stout and very high quality billet. So it should work pretty well. I'll report back with some performance in regards to the performance of the lights. But they seem exceedingly bright and they look like they're going to work very well. And again, I like where they're mounted and they look fantastic on the Pan America. So stay tuned. Actually, I'll show you another little clip here at the end as I kind of button things up and loom things up a little bit here. So stay tuned. As we look at this looming job I'm doing, I'm kind of focusing here on this one zip tie I've got that I'm actually running from the switch back down here through the riser, the bar risers, and following kind of this cable path. Well, obviously you can pull it kind of tight here. However, if you want to get it nice and snug, sorry for the shaky camera work, I have this tool here from RV Roads, which is pretty slick. Down here you can actually set the tension, and of course the jaws actually grip the tie rip, pull it, and cut it once it hits that tension. So you don't over tighten it with this tool either. So take a look. Actually, I end up using it quite often. So now I'll get here on this cable tie, and you can see I've actually placed it over the top of the tie, if you can kind of see that. And now I'm pulling that, it'll actually pull it tight as necessary, and then once it gets to a certain tension, it's going to go ahead and cut it off. And it leaves a nice dull tailpiece, so obviously you don't, again, scrape your hands across these sharp points on tail pieces of zip tie. Okay, so I finished the looming of the auxiliary lights, wiring it in to one of the, actually the accessory aux ports. Let me show you how I ran my cabling if you're interested. So from this particular aux light, I ran up and followed behind the crash guard member here, and then up inside. It's kind of hard to see here, but up inside the frame member here, it actually runs over, and as you can see, the connectors up here for the remote, or for the remote, the connectors up here for the switch, and the connector for the left light is actually here. And it's protected, out of the way. I've got it zip tied in place, following actually the cabling loom that actually ran to the back of the bike on the left side. Now, I then came across and followed the cabling loom back under the rear frame member here, seat bracket, bolt-on seat bracket, and then just followed it in. On the other side, you may be able to see it actually running there on the, actually again, following the crash guard point where it actually bolts to the frame. So it actually comes up here, runs across, leave a little bit of extra so you can actually adjust the light. And of course you can see the cubic bracket I have in place there on the left side. So this then in turn actually runs up and follows the frame member, or excuse me, yeah, so it runs up and follows the frame member all the way to here. And then here it actually runs, only point I run outside the frame is there, and then I run and follow the frame member back between the frame member and the air box all the way back to the cable loom here. And then once I get to the cable loom again, I follow and bring these two back into the main cable loom underneath the seat bracket and back into the back here. Now as you can see, I actually have it hooked, the main power hooked to one of the accessories. This is a switched accessory port that's available, one of two that's available on the Harley Pan America. I left enough slack in there, but there's a lot of extra cable left, and there's a rather large relay and so forth for the lights. I actually ran all of that. There's quite a bit of room actually up inside the tailpiece. So I ran the excess cabling up and tied it back inside the tailpiece with the relay and so forth. So that actually completed the entire looming project. Now, as you can see, we can go ahead and turn on the accessories. And once that starts up, you'll actually see on the switch here, it has a memory, so whatever state you left it in last. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the DRL lights. And there's the DRL lights. So as you can come over here, you can see the DRL lights are lit in collaboration with, of course, the standard turn signals and indicator lights that are on the Pan America. I ran, of course, those right below those. So it gets you extra noticed when you're actually running during the daytime. You definitely have a little more light there to ensure that people actually see you. So now, the second thing is the driving lights. So that's the DRL driving lights, but the actual spot and side lights, the high intensity lights, you can turn those on. As you can see, those are ridiculously bright. So they really add a lot to the Pan America in regards to lighting. So I'm anxious to try it out this evening, find out how well it works in collaboration with light. But although lighting is pretty good on the Pan America, this actually makes it considerably more, especially in our area where we have deer and a lot of twisty roads. It makes it notably safer to run with these higher intensity lights. And as I had mentioned before, this will all shut off even if I just turn off now that I have it run on a switch circuit. So you turn off your switch circuit and it all stops. So when you stop your motorcycle, obviously your lighting then shuts down so you don't drain the battery, because again, those are running 9 amps, so they can definitely drain your battery, as I had mentioned before. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to button it up, put the gas tank back on it, put the seats back on it, and take it for a spin. So if you had any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I'll get back to you. But yeah, all the adapters and everything I bought here were just purely off of Amazon. And the driving lights themselves, I think, were about 160 bucks. So it was a pretty inexpensive solution. Do I think that it's probably the same level of the Daymaker lights from Harley and or the Denali's I had mentioned before? Those are definitely very high quality lights. However, I think these look like they might be sufficient. They're definitely very, very solid. So I'll give them a run, and I'll obviously report back in regards to how well I think they perform. Hey y'all, one last thing. Thought I'd show you the final product here. So here it is, reassembled. Seats fits back perfect. Everything. The wire looming turned out exceedingly well, and as you can see, the lights look fantastic. Just about getting to the point where I can take it out for a spin this evening and see how well those lights work. As I mentioned before, they come on with the switch, and man, they are seriously bright. That with the headlights is definitely going to be noticed. So let me see here if I got, so that should be everything on right as can be. So I think that we'll probably be able to see well with that. And hopefully we'll see deer and other people will see us and have a much better view of the road.